Today, Queenslanders head to the polls in an election that's expected to go down to the wire. Precise and targeted, says Israel, as it hits Iran with a series of airstrikes. 3 people killed after 2 light planes collided mid-air.
Cross towards Benny. It's still there. Rotala!
The Matildas tie with Switzerland in their first game since Tony Gustafsson's departure. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Mariam Saab. Polls are set to close shortly in Queensland, with the Labor government seeking a 4th term and the LNP hoping to win office for the first time since the Newman era. 2 potential premiers have made their final pitches, but more than half of all registered voters have cast their ballots early.
A quintessential Queensland institution, democracy on display.
Amazing. Can't change your mind.
Yeah. A glowing review of the Premier's 10 months in charge, albeit a biased one.
A privilege, I think, and an honour to watch the person I love, my favourite person in the world, do his best for Queenslanders. It's been wonderful.
Here's to a fresh start for Queensland. David Crisafulli, how are you?
Opposition leader David Crisafulli started his day in the only Gold Coast Labor-held seat of Gavin.
If we get the chance, I'd like the opportunity in 4 years' time to earn your trust.
We'll see. I'll see what you do and
you.
really hope that you don't stuff it up if you get in.
The LNP needs a dozen seats to take government for the first time since 2015. Several Brisbane Labor seats like Cooper here in Ashgrove are under threat from a strong Greens outfit. The government's challenge is appealing to voters here in the capital while retaining regional seats at risk of flipping to the LNP and Katters.
I think it's time for change.
I like the fact that there was $1,000 off my electricity bill.
Change needs to happen, and that's why people are going for the smaller parties like One Nation and the Katter Party.
I voted for, to keep Stephen Miles in. Especially after the Cyclones up here last year, he was fantastic.
Bundaberg is Queensland's most marginal seat, held by Labor's Tom Smith by just 9 votes.
I think I changed on to the LNP. Maybe they might do something.
Potential kingmaker Robbie Katter from Katter's Australian Party has threatened legal action over signage.
I've messaged Dave Crisafulli to tell him that he knows that's a lie and take it down, give him the option they've chosen not to.
Serious allegations also made in the marginal LNP seat of Currumbin.
There's been intimidation, there's been all sorts of things, and it's something that, I'm probably going to sit down and write about it.
Almost 2 million Queenslanders cast their ballot early. Alex Brewster, ABC News, Brisbane.
Stand by. Let's go to Ariana Levy, who joins us from Labor headquarters now. Ari, what's the mood there at Labor HQ?
Yeah, good afternoon, Mariam. Well, we're in a tavern at Murrumba Downs, which is Stephen Miles' own electorate, and it's actually doubling up as the Labor headquarters. We're seeing Labor stalwarts sort of enter in drips and drabs, but we are expecting a lot more to turn out once polls close at about 6 p.m. local time, so in about half an hour or so. But speaking to Labor sources here on the ground, they're feeling quietly confident about how tonight will pan out. They say that it has been certainly a mammoth campaign, not just over the last 30 days, but over the last 10 months. It's been quite significant, and they feel that they've given it everything that they've got, but it certainly does come as the polls have shown that it is certainly turning into a bit of a tighter race, a really 2-horse race. Now, the LNP for a lot of this campaign have been well and truly out in front, but it has tightened up in the last week or so, and that could be for a number of factors, but it has been suggested that the touting and the bringing up of the subject of abortion legislation has certainly thrown a spanner in the works. The addition from the Katters Australia Party, who have touted that abortion legislation, saying that they would bring in a private members bill, has certainly thrown a bit of trouble for the LNP party. So that's something they are hopeful might sort of turn the tide in this election race as it really gets down to the wire.
Ari, we've seen the Premier out and about throughout the campaign, and it seems he's left nothing to chance.
He certainly has it. In the last 24 hours, it's been a very, very busy campaign. He actually blitzed 36 electorates in 36 hours. It's a record that he broke from the last Queensland Premier, Anna Bligh, who toured 50 votes in 5 days, so quite significant indeed. Now, this morning he started out in Marumba, his own electorate, where he cast his vote alongside his wife in Kalenga, and that's where he asked Queenslanders to vote for Labor so that he could continue to do what matters for the state. We've also seen him in the electorates of McConnell and Cooper, so really those inner city seats, before he spent the afternoon really touring a lot of those volunteer booths where he was thanking his volunteers as well. Now, he spent the last 10 months really spruiking cost of living measures. He's really tried to ask Queenslanders that a vote for him would be so that he could govern in his own mandate. It has certainly been a huge mammoth effort. A cost of living has been front and centre for a lot of Queenslanders, and that's where he's sort of touted his 50-cent public transport fares, as well as those $1,000 off energy bills. Now, he did speak earlier today, and this is a little bit of what he had to say.
We've had a great campaign, and I'm looking forward to getting around the booths today and thanking our volunteers.
You campaigned strongly over the past 4 weeks, but will it be enough?
Well, time will tell, I suppose, Josh, but I'll certainly know that I couldn't have done anything more.
Now, speaking to constituents here on the ground today at voting booths, they say that there is sort of an appetite for change, whether that's an appetite for a change in government or whether there's been enough from the Labor camp and Stephen Miles sort of distancing himself from his predecessor, Anastasia Palaszczuk. Whether that's enough to see him retain Labor in a fourth consecutive term is all up to the polls tonight.
Thank you, Ariana Levy. They're reporting from Labor HQ. We expect supporters to start piling in once polls do close in around 30 minutes or so. Thank you. Turning next to the other side of politics, we'll take you to LNP headquarters. Our reporter standing by there, Kate McKenna. Kate, the LNP has been in opposition for almost a decade. What's the mood there about the chances?
Good evening. Well, I'm at the W Hotel in Brisbane CBD, which actually falls in a Labor seat. And the official function hasn't started here yet. It's largely just media and some advisors, but that'll of course change once the polls close. Now, people in the party I've been speaking to today say they feel there's been a real positive mood on the ground. They say there feels like there's a mood for change, and one says that they're very, very hopeful of the LNP forming a majority. But others I spoke to were very quick to deny they felt that confident. They say this is a tough contest. They felt it would always be a tough ask, and they're very keenly aware of the historical odds. Labor in Queensland has governed for 30 of the past 35 years, so they're very aware of that as they head into the election night. Now, David Crisafulli has run a very disciplined campaign focusing on a number of key issues: youth crime, health, housing and cost of living, and really setting up a policy battle with Labor here over particularly youth crime. Among their policies is to try minors as adults for serious offences, including murder, manslaughter and unlawful use of a motor vehicle. But questions around abortion have continued to follow Mr Crisafulli throughout this campaign. Now, he's maintained that there would be no change to the laws in Queensland. Abortion was decriminalised here in 2018, and he said there would be no changes to the laws if the LNP was elected tonight. But some I've spoken to in the party say the issue has continued to be brought up by voters at voting booths in the southeast. So we will just have to see what happens, but we'll bring you more coverage as we know more throughout the night.
Thank you, Kate McKenna. They're reporting from LNP headquarters. The war in the Middle East has reached another dangerous inflection point, with Israel following through on its threat to attack Iran, launching multiple airstrikes. Iran says that its air defence system countered Israel's attack on military targets, with limited damage sustained. But the fear that this action could plunge the region into an even broader conflict remains. We begin tonight's coverage with Middle East correspondent Matthew Doran in Jerusalem.
When a promise to attack becomes reality. Explosions heard around the Iranian capital.
Several powerful explosions have been heard near Tehran. The origin of the sound is not known yet.
The Israeli Defense Forces soon confirming it had begun its long-awaited strikes.
The regime in Iran and its proxies in the region have been relentlessly attacking Israel since October 7th on 7 fronts, including direct attacks from Iranian soil. Like every other sovereign country in the world, the State of Israel has the right and the duty to respond.
Israel had pledged to respond to Iran's attack on October 1st when more than 180 missiles were fired at Israel. That strike launched in retaliation for the killing of the leader of Hezbollah, Iran's ally in Lebanon. This latest salvo in an increasingly dangerous cycle of attacks watched closely by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from a bunker in Tel Aviv. Their targets, missile manufacturing facilities and surface-to-air missile defences in the Ilam, Khuzestan and Tehran provinces. After 3 waves of strikes, Israel announced its mission was complete and issued another warning.
If the regime in Iran were to make the mistake of beginning a new round of escalation, we will be obligated to respond.
A threat backed by Washington, a senior White House official telling reporters these strikes should end direct exchanges between the two arch-enemies, but warning of consequences should Tehran respond again.
Now for more analysis on the situation in Iran and the wider Middle East, let's bring in our Global Affairs editor, John Lyons. John, thanks for being with us. What's your assessment of what we've seen unfold overnight?
Well, Mariam, obviously dramatic. An Israeli attack on Iran is always dramatic, as would be Iran's direct attack on Israel, as we saw on October the 1st. They've made 2 waves of strikes, mainly on military targets, on air defence systems in Iran and on missile production facilities. They have not attacked oil or nuclear facilities. The United States had really pressured Israel not to hit those 2. They didn't want a world energy crisis, especially leading up to an election, which the Democrats are trying to win. And so, in a strange way, though, my analysis is that this is almost like a release of pressure, a pressure valve. Israel's responded, but it's not a full response. It's not as hard as Israel could have gone. In a way, it's almost proportionate. Unlike Israel's attacks in Gaza, which in my assessment are not proportionate, this is almost proportionate, which I think will mean that Iran probably won't then respond, and it probably lets a bit of pressure out of the system.
Now, Israel and Iran have been engaged in so-called tit-for-tat for some time now, for years in shadow war via allies and proxies. Can you take us through the most recent timeline, John?
Yes, it's possible always to go back, of course, forever in the Middle East. There's always an original, you did this, we did that. But the 2 most important dates here are October the 1st, when Iran unleashed about 180 ballistic missiles at Israel, most of which were intercepted. But then that was in retaliation for April the 1st, when Israel hit an Iranian consulate in Syria. It's very rare that any country will ever bomb a consulate or an embassy. Sort of the rule of law is, the rule of war tends to be, you don't hit embassies, because people would have been there trying to get visas. Israel says there were members of the Revolutionary Guard there. That's why they targeted it. But then that was the October 1 attack by Iran, was in response to that. Now the issue is, does Iran now respond to this? My sense is they probably will not.
Global Affairs editor John Lyons there. Well, there are just 11 days to go until the US presidential election, and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were both in Texas today. Donald Trump was in Austin recording an interview with Joe Rogan for his popular podcast, while Kamala Harris was in Houston, where Beyonce took to the stage with the Democratic presidential candidate.
Queen Bee back in her home state to lend a helping hand to the Democratic presidential candidate. Texas is seen as a safe Republican state, but Kamala Harris came here because it has a near total ban on abortions, and that's a key campaign issue for the Democrats.
You who are ground zero in the fight for reproductive freedom.
Donald Trump was also in the southern state, trying out his new catchphrase on illegal immigration.
We're like a garbage can. We're like a garbage can. First time I said it was last night.
Make sure y'all get on the boat. Local star power being deployed in Atlanta, Georgia too. A rapper and a former NFL quarterback among those touring a notoriously crime-ridden and run-down housing estate, encouraging people to get out and vote.
If you want change, complaining is not going to work. So instead of complaining, this is your way to be heard.
The goal here is to encourage and ignite our communities, especially the communities that are often forgotten about.
I might, because she told me to.
Can you tell us who you're going to vote for?
It ain't going to be Trump.
2.5 million people in Georgia alone have already voted. This time around, both campaigns are encouraging their supporters to vote early. And one of the reasons is that allows them to get a lot of information on which demographics are casting ballots, allowing them to fine-tune who they still need to reach out to.
Georgian residents over the age of 65 have been particularly enthusiastic about early voting, so that's potentially a positive for the Trump campaign. Potential positive sign for the Harris campaign is women voters have really been taking up early voting as well.
As a race without a clear front runner nears the finishing line. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
3 men have died after 2 light planes collided mid-air in Sydney's southwest today. Emergency services were called to reports of a light plane crash in Bushland at Balimbla Park at around midday. The 2 crash sites are in close proximity, with one of the planes bursting into flames on impact. The Australian Transport Safety Bureau is investigating the cause of the crash. Police have confirmed that a woman has been charged after allegedly assaulting Senator Lydia Thorpe outside the MCG in Melbourne in May. Victoria Police arrested a 27-year-old woman in July after allegedly assaulting another woman outside an AFL match. The woman will appear before the Melbourne Magistrates Court on Monday, charged with recklessly causing injury and assault. Live sheep exports to the Middle East are dwindling down due to the federal government's commitment to ban the trade by 2028. And that's led to importers in Kuwait turning to other countries, including South Africa, for their livestock.
An average of about 700,000 sheep have been exported live from Australia to the Middle East every year for the past 5 years. But with Australia set to ban live exports in 2028, that number is starting to fall. And that's worrying importers in our biggest export market.
It's very disturbing for us to end the business like that. We don't want to end up with a shortage of protein in this country, and we have to explore our new markets. We open South Africa, but not as efficient as Australia.
The federal government is now offering support for farmers affected by the phase-out of live export, worth almost $140 million. In a statement, the Agriculture Minister, Julie Collins, said $27 million of the package is earmarked to enhance demand within Australia and internationally for Australian sheep products, including in Kuwait. While global demand for boxed meat from Australia is on the rise, the demand in Kuwait is for live sheep.
I'm doing now too from Australia, but the demand is not matching at all because the people they needed it to be fresh.
Although public concern about the treatment of sheep on board export ships has contributed to the decision to ban the trade, industry representatives fear global standards for animal welfare will fall without Australia in the market.
If we take ourselves out of the international market where there is demand for live animals, we are removing ourselves from the impact that we can have internationally on animal welfare.
With live sheep exports from Australia already on the downturn, Kuwaiti importers are now scrambling to find a replacement for live sheep to meet growing demand in the Middle East before the ban comes into force. Sophie Johnson, ABC News.
You might have an idea about how supermarket specials work. There's a retail price, and then if you wait long enough, sometimes that item is discounted. But for thousands of products at Coles and Woolworths, these specials aren't occasional and actually follow a clear pattern. Maddie Schuster breaks down the pricing process for us.
Walking down a supermarket aisle, it's not hard to spot the sales tickets. In some cases, these sales happen because of a retail strategy called high-low pricing, where the price goes from high to low and then back again. Let's take a look at a single box of Cadbury favourites from May to August this year. At Coles, the price starts at $22, goes down to $11 and then back up to $22 again. And this pattern repeats every week. At Woolworths, the prices swing in the same way. But here's the thing, the price drops alternate between supermarkets on different weeks. A similar thing happens with another Aussie favourite, Tim Tams. The prices are a bit more erratic, but the pattern is mostly regular. These products are part of a much broader group of around 22,000 that moved between high and low prices at least 4 times across 12 weeks this year. We got the data from Adam Williamson. He's a data professional who's collected online supermarket prices for the last few months.
So it just felt like there was more and more sales tickets at the supermarket, and it got me wondering, how special are those specials?
It turns out they're not that special. Most of the products that swing between prices are pantry items. Think chocolate, chips and canned food. Next are beauty and personal care items like makeup and medicine. And the smallest group to fluctuate high and low? Fruit and veggies. Getting a good price feels good, but it's not all positive.
Other supermarkets are always having to compete with customers going, oh, but it's on sale at Woolies or it's on sale at Coles. Why haven't you got it on sale here? And there's this sense of they're always having to be on sale. And it's really not a sustainable model for any competitors.
Both Coles and Woolworths say their pricing strategies are influenced by their suppliers, and it's all done to give the customer the best deal. Supermarket pricing and competition is being investigated by the ACCC, with a final report due in February.
Members of a remote Indigenous community have travelled across the world to bring back dozens of sacred items sold to a German researcher more than 50 years ago. Stone knives, shields and spear throwers are among the pieces that have been returned.
In Australia's Red Centre, the remote town of Yuendumu is 300 kilometres north of Alice Springs. 50 years ago, a German researcher visited the community to capture Warlpiri culture on film and left with dozens of sacred items and cultural objects.
It don't belong to everyone. It don't belong to anyone from outside of the place, of the community.
Half a century later, Jamie Hampton from the Warlpiri Project tracked the missing items to Frankfurt.
Hey, is this Bernhoff speaking? Yes, this is Jamie.
The late German researcher's son, who joined him on a visit to Yuendumu, had them in his personal collection.
Bernhoff remembers a lot of those conversations his father had with those elders. And because of that, he'd always, wanted to eventually give these objects back to the community.
That time has now come.
It's been, a long journey for the Warlpiri Project, and it's good that we kind of bring our ancestors' objects back.
We're doing it for our children, like our elders have done it for our generation.
Now a team from the Warlpiri community are making the 14,000-kilometre journey to Germany to bring the sacred objects back home.
Half a world away, here at Frankfurt's Senckenberg Museum, the long journey home for these sacred objects begins.
The collection includes stone knives, spear throwers and shields.
It's mixed emotions from being excited, emotional, feeling complete. They're not just objects. To us, they're part of our ancestors, part of our DNA.
The community will also be given around 7 hours of video footage filmed in Yuendumu in the 1970s.
They mean much more to them
than they do for me. When they reconnected to the objects, it was no question this had to be done. And I'm happy we did it.
For the Warlpiri community, these items don't just unlock a piece of history, they offer the opportunity for future generations to connect with their culture.
It's not just with us as men, it's women, it's young people that are now saying, hey, you know, we've got to do more of this.
The objects will be temporarily stored at the South Australian Museum until a cultural centre in Yuendumu is finished. Once there, their journey home will be complete.
The Matildas' new era has begun with a 1-1 draw against Switzerland in Zurich. Australia went into the break with the lead after Caitlin Ford was fouled, allowing her to convert from the penalty spot. But the goal was cancelled out by Geraldine Reuterler's second-half strike as interim coach Tom Simani's first game ended in a stalemate. He says that he wants a stronger defensive effort in their next game with Germany on Tuesday morning.
I was a little bit disappointed with the quality of the goal that we gave away. So hopefully the German game might be a little bit more open, but it also might give us more opportunities attacking-wise.
And Adelaide continues to hold pace with the NBL's top sides making a second-half comeback to beat an injury-plagued Cairns last night. The Taipans were up by 19 points during the first half, with the side sinking an incredible 10 three-point shot. It was only the extroverted Montrez Harrell who kept the home side in it, who finished the match with 36 points. A halftime spray from coach Mike Wills sparked the 36ers into life, with guard Kendrick Davis instrumental in an overtime win.
I thought once we started to compete the second half, you saw a whole different game from the group.
I never want to let him down, but I don't want to let my team down. So when he challenged me, I want to step up to the occasion.
On the satellite picture, low to mid-level cloud and thunderstorm activity is running from north through central Western Australia, with clouds over South Australia and New South Wales, with low-level clouds over Tasmania and Western Australia. Let's take a look around the country for tomorrow next. Cold fronts bring strong winds and gusty showers to Tasmania, showers into eastern Queensland, sending extreme heat to the tropics. Isolated showers for central, southern and southeastern Queensland, with a chance of a thunderstorm in the southern interior, but mostly sunny elsewhere. In New South Wales and the ACT, a chance of showers and thunderstorms in the north, dry and partly cloudy elsewhere. In Victoria, a mostly cloudy day with the chance of a shower across the state. For Tasmania, easing showers during the afternoon. In South Australia, showers and possible thunderstorms expected in the north. While in Western Australia, possible showers and thunderstorms over central and northern parts of the state. To the Northern Territory, a chance of showers in the north and west, while mostly sunny elsewhere. Looking ahead to Monday's forecast for our capital cities, Brisbane, possible showers and 26. In Sydney and Canberra, mostly sunny with a top of 26. In Melbourne, also sunny but with a slight chill at 18 degrees. Windy and possible showers, 16 in Hobart. Adelaide, mostly sunny with a top of 24. And in Perth, a warm 33. A few showers for Darwin with a top of 35 there. Queensland votes live from the ABC Election Centre, up next.